Alrighty, good afternoon and welcome. I'm really happy to have a small group because this is going to scare a lot of people, I think. So, yes, this is the day that we speak more about AI. As the previous presenter was just talking about machine learning and AI. Well, we got to look at AI in respect to technology, cybersecurity, but very importantly, we need humans to be better engineered too. And that means there's a lot of things that could be used to help the rise of AI, right? So proven classics forged with Internet of Medical Things. We've seen a lot of these different devices that I'm going to be talking about and then demonstrating. I spent a lot of time reverse engineering all this type of tech to better understand how it works. And this is where there needs to be more regulation. So let me jump straight into it. Just a quick thanks and appreciation to everybody for sharing your time with me. And very importantly, some of the folks that have helped me get to where I've got today. That's our company, Cyber2 Labs, a lot of the folks at the Shaolin Temple in Europe. I'm a Qigong instructor, been doing a lot of martial arts since the age of probably about 14. I got into that because there was a really great girl that just arrived at our school from Hungary, and she was a Hungarian kickboxing champion. So I thought I'm going to go and learn how to do kickboxing. Got beaten up all the time because I was a small guy, all because of love, right? And so the story kind of circulates when you look at the power of love. But the International Space Federation speaking a lot more about dark matter and energy. I'm a radio frequency guy. Now, I'm going to give you a few disclaimers. I'm ex-law enforcement. I was in a special unit. I've had many near-death experiences, so I see the world a little bit different to many people. And the reason being is I've been out of my body, looking at my body on the floor, being dead, right? Many times. So I willfully, most of those situations, but also growing up partly in South Africa, England, and Texas. That's where the mixed accent comes from. A little bit of diversity there. So it's really taught me to be more balanced. And a few disclaimers. I'm going to be speaking about some medical topics because there's a huge plethora of devices being released promising to create Superman or Superwoman or Super Being, whatever you want to call it. There's a huge promise, and these devices are thousands of dollars. And I'm going to show you how you can reverse engineer it, build it yourself for about 100, 150 bucks. Because we need people to be incentivized in order to actually understand AI from an energy, sound, from the fundamentals that the kids going to school nowadays have forgotten about the fundamentals of that stuff. They used to teach us at school when we did magnetic experiments. So all of this information is not related to any medical advice. You can obviously read the disclaimer yourself. So it's designed for educational purposes and is not meant to give anybody the hope of we're going to solve all of your health problems. But I have been prototyping a lot of different types of these devices using artificial intelligence. And the first thing we need to understand is, well, why do we need AI? So before I go into the specifics here, the key thing is all of these devices are coming out with a huge price tag. And what does that mean? Well, for the poor people, kind of sucks to be them. And this is where I come in, right? Because I will show you a device that's sold for more than $5,000 will cost you less than $100 to build it yourself. Everything is open source. And so those companies need validation, verification from federal government. I'm going to let you know, I've done a lot of work in the past with the US government. I've been very honored and privileged to work on drone defense projects. So I'm a radio frequency guy. And when those folks put me onto drone defense projects, you always think offense and then defense. And so I picked up a whole lot more about energy working on some of those projects. So I have to give all of my thanks and appreciation to the US government. I know many people don't always see the government as a good thing because we look at the politicians. The politicians are actors in a temporary role. I think we should see it as that. The military and the government, the military folks are the ones really that are typically more balanced because we've been put through our paces. Our first 3 months of training, they try and break you so you can rebuild yourself. So we got to do things that are going to make it more affordable and accessible to folks that cannot afford some of this technology. I'm going to go straight into showing you a quick demo of why we need AI. And some of you are going to be pretty shocked because the biggest downfall right now is the human layer, right? So let's have a look at how easy it is to hack into your cell phone provider with a telephone and a smart gel. Any idea why this wouldn't work if you got AI running that? AI has no emotions. So you're not going to social engineer the AI. The AI is going to follow a protocol, like the military follow a protocol. There are rules that you recognize. There's rules of engagement on the battlefield. The problem is when you're on the battlefield and somebody's shooting at you, you got a question to ask yourself. If I don't shoot that person today, he's going to be on the battlefield tomorrow and try and shoot me again. So the rules of engagement is kind of the standard when you start looking at some of this tech. And this is where we start realizing the downfall of how many of these huge companies, MGM, was exactly that. So I've got a lot of slides. I'm going to be sharing them with you, but this is not where I'm going to cover each slide. This is so I'm going to help educate those that want this information, and I want you to be able to go and verify and validate everything I say. Do not believe anything I say unless you go and verify and validate it. Why is that? Well, the human perception, people perceive the world through their own eyes. You're not going to push somebody to see my perspective or my opinions. When you go and experience that, you will then understand it from perhaps my perspective. Like as an example, if you've not gone through a near-death experience, I don't recommend you go and try that out. Like, let's go through a quick near-death experience. I'm going to just jump. Not a good thing to go and try out, right? So things have happened for various reasons, but a lot of people are coming together to show ancient technologies that are all based on energy. So if you asked me 5 years ago what I thought about Qigong, I've done other martial arts. I've done a lot of different martial arts, Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu and all of these crazy things they teach you I was in a specialist unit, rapid response. So we got called out and we had to respond to situations rapidly. And that's where your adrenaline takes over. You plan and prepare everything that you normally would do on the battlefield. But as soon as you've got that action and you engage and you've got bullets flying over your head, your adrenaline kicks in. Everybody's trying to help everybody get stronger and healthier, because if we don't help the lowest denomination of the food, we all need to work together. We've seen that with COVID. If the people are weak, it affects everybody, not just them. So we're going to talk about sound, frequency, light, quantum, electricity, and obviously all with artificial intelligence. And we're going to make this as fun as possible. So these are some of the medical devices. Right now, this is a Rife machine, and the one I'm holding right now is about $420, the cheapest of them all. All right. This is a special wound copper coil in the shape of, you would have probably seen that Einstein's, atom, right? So it's like 3D, an amplifier. You can buy this amplifier from Amazon for $50 and about 20 bucks, maybe 40 bucks with the connectors and the cable to go and put the actual, it's like a speaker effectively. So when you've got this device, they then give you a free application you can use that is going to generate different frequencies. And that's the part where we go like, okay, well, that's the cheapest of them, right? $420. But the one that costs $5,500 maybe needs $50 of copper wire and a $100 amplifier, a sound amplifier, purchasable directly from Amazon. And so my aim is to initially reverse engineer this to verify this technology. There is no FDA or any other government body sanctioning who can sell these things. They've been sold without anybody verifying this, and people could fry themselves. As you're going to see in a few moments, there's some negative potential side effects when they're not manufactured. So these folks, their mission is to provide access to repressed EMF technology. Really? Provide access? Well, what about the poor people? They're going to afford $5,500 for a $150 machine that they're not even building their own applications. So we need AI to help us validate these types of technologies. It's not just in the manufacturing and OT and IoT and cyber. We got that down to a T. We just got to use more technology now. You're going to see a lot more robot automated systems to stop some of those social engineering techniques. This is a guy who was in the US Air Force who fell out of a helicopter. I'm going to show you his video in a minute so you can actually see this is serious business. He's selling a pyramid that's made of specific configuration. I've built these things as well and validated them. But he's got these new special iTaurus 0-point crystal, the toroid pendant necklace, $350. Once again, you can make this for about 20 bucks. You can buy the epoxy and the mold and the copper wire, and you can then plug it into different devices. So it's using technologies such as Vortex, it's using EMF. We'll go into some of the specific techniques there. That pyramid with multiple big iTauruses there, he's got their $33,000. Obviously, he didn't fall hard enough when he fell out of the helicopter. I'm sorry. I've had those near-death experiences too, and what do? I want to help. I want to help people heal, not to become a millionaire and steal from people. And what about the poor people? Let them die? That's kind of, of an understatement. But let's have a quick look at, his background there, so you can see there's a lot of this technology that is validated. I'll show you a few of those, but a quick look so you understand where we're coming from. This is all electronics. Your computer systems, your cloud, everything's controlled by energy that most of us don't have a basic understanding of how electricity works. How many of you can truly say you know how the cable running from the power plant to your house, the electricity is not running on the cable. There's a field, and your human body is an electrical machine. How did I find that out? Well, I've got a multimeter over here, and anybody after the presentation, welcome to come and check your voltage. If you don't have enough electricity in your body, you're not able to generate new cells. So this is information where in order to be better in cyber, we better make sure our bodies are stronger. So for the last 5 years, I've had a clean out. I got to America and I love America. What makes America great are the people. But the fast food places in Texas, every fast food place, I had to go and try it all out. I mean, growing up partly in Africa and then England, they've got the Chinese and then the Indian foods and the British bangers and mash, not my favorite, but you know, hey, it is what it is. So I got to Texas and I'm like, I'm going to try everything because it tasted so amazingly well. And after many years of living in America, I didn't realize how I was over consuming things that were probably not so good for me. Let's listen to this guy talk about pyramids. And you're going to see this is all about electricity. When we understand electricity better, we're going to be able to put it to better use, and we'll be able to use the AI to better manage those things because we've been failing as humans in cyber right now. We are being targeted and hacked successfully because a human pushed the button and opened the door. Now, I would have said this would be woo-woo. I wouldn't have looked at this. I wouldn't have given it 30 seconds. But because he was in the Air Force, I'm going like, hang on a second. Let me listen to what this guy's got to say. You know, the ether is otherwise known as your 0 point field, your 0 point energy. You can see he's generating this through this actual coil. This is called the torus field. And it's got a big magnetic that's obviously moving in the actual pattern that radio frequency is running in. So if you've never looked at vortex mathematics, that will help you better understand the vortex and the Fibonacci sequence and the spiral. All of those are what we otherwise refer to as sacred geometry. All right, so we don't have to watch his whole presentation there. But the key point there is there's been some ancient, like 1934, George Lavoisky built this little symbol, which is made out of copper. This is just on a wooden board. But this is so that I can energize water. So what he did to test this, he gave 3 plants cancer. And one of the plants, he put this special copper coil around it. The 2 plants completely died. And the one that had the special copper coil around the plant not only lived, but grew bigger than it would have intended to grow because it's generating a harmonious field. We are being bombarded with electromagnetic interference, EMF, every moment. Your wireless devices, left, right, and center, you have no idea. And just having a simple PCB board printed very cheaply can actually start harmonizing your radio electrical energy fields that surround you. So these are these devices, right? Now, this is one of the good ones. Russian developed, 23 patents, validated through scientific research. And this is again using sacred geometry. On one side, you've got the flat 1D pattern effectively. And on the other side, you've got a similar pattern, but you've also got 2 microprocessors, which basically is composed of nearly 1.2 million microscopic etchings that create a circular lattice to diffract the EMR waves. This is again sold out, not cheap, more than $200. I've built this myself for about $10. All right. If you look at the cost of the electronics and so forth, there is no power that's needed to actually power the actual processor. It's done based upon its actual etching. So the outer gold antenna captures the energy from the surrounding EMF that actually powers the passive microprocessor. And this is the part where it is amazing technology. I can vouch for that because I've been testing it. And you can see how it's actually made. So there's various different layers. But once again, this is going to cost you maybe $10, $20 to actually manufacture. But they do have all of the peer-reviewed studies. They have the scientific publications. You can download clinical and scientific trials and reports, and they have 22 patents. So this is designed and developed by some of the Russians. So when I was working out for United Nations, doing dark web missions and so forth with a lot of law enforcement out in Asia, I had a couple of extra near-death experiences as well, but I started recognizing there was an issue with things that we were not told about in America. So I went and I started studying all of the manuals, the special manuals that the Russians and the Chinese and all of them have to train their intelligence officers and so on. And that's what led me down this road of being able to understand electricity from a much better perspective. Many of you have been aware of Albert Einstein's equations and Nassim Haramein. If you never heard of this guy, he's been able to build some amazing technology. He's not an academic physicist. He's a physicist, but he's actually an inventor. He's a scientist and he builds things. And this is where we live at a critical time. He's just recently set up the Space Federation, the International Space Federation. And the message from him is real clear. We live at a critical time in history. It's time when humanity and our evolution have exceeded the capacity of our biosphere. We've been damaging the Earth biosphere. We can tell the weather patterns are rapidly changing. So this is where it's no longer sustainable. The new technological developments in energy production and transportation are critical at this point, which is we're going to use electricity more effectively. So this directly relates to all the cybersecurity stuff. And of course, this is going to help the human evolution as well. When you look at the technological applications, this is showing you how it's affecting everything from, and I know some of you are going to go like, well, this looks like a bit woo-woo, Wayne. Interstellar travel, terraforming. Oh, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was like, I didn't make that happen. Planet colonization, space exploration, gravitational control. All I got to tell you is you need to go and study it and research it like I have as well, because he's completed many of those equations, the Max Planck, the Albert Einstein, and obviously a lot of the folks that contributed. So these are some more of these devices again. So this is from Dave Osprey, great guy. He's bioengineered himself, but he spent $2 million. Okay, I did it on a shoestring budget, probably for a couple of $100, with some of the courses I've taken from various different, so-called intuitive healers and all of these things that I had to try and better understand energy. But this is, again, all of these devices are thousands of dollars, no scientific validation, no FDA approval. You put in a huge coil on your body and you're applying a radio frequency. And they're going like, hey, it's cool. We're going to start seeing people walking around, with a lot more problems than what COVID may have caused or may not have caused if we don't start putting a tap on this. And this is again where they say, oh, yeah, well, it's this, sympathetic or symphonic pulsed electromagnetic field. You've seen a lot of PEMF therapy. And there are studies that have been done, but not specifically on his device. These are general types of studies. Now we're moving into the brain simulator where you're going to be basically shocking your brain. How many people, Elon Musk, what he's doing is a little bit too far, right? He's putting an implant in your head. I'm like, no, I don't like the needles. But if somebody's been injured on the battlefield, this is where my heart and the focus is to help those veterans that are so suicidal and they've been pumped with medication that's not helping them. There's now 2,500 on average suicides every month from the veterans. And that's where we send them out to do war for us, but we don't care when they come back and we got to try and help them. They get just put down, in some hospital with a lot of medications. So these other devices, they do have some good background, but it's all about neuromodulation. And again, I'm not going to get into this, is just giving everybody a lot of information about how this electricity is being used against us or for us. It all depends on if it's been validated or not. So there's a lot of neuromodulation studies. There are a lot more companies now that are actually showing you some really good data. Here we can see versus, you know, your side effects, your cost, your effect, your access, antidepressants versus therapy versus their technology device. So it sells for about $500, and 56% of the depression free at 10 weeks versus antidepressants of 26%. So it's not saying pills don't work. It all depends on the perception of that person. This is the part where we cannot interfere. The government are screwed if they do or if they don't. They cannot say if it's good or bad for you, because if your thoughts can make you sick, your thoughts can make you well and better again. And that's the key difference. So we have to look at various different types of technological and traditional forms of therapy and medicines. The importance of sound. This was pretty funny. They put a field around this electrical field with sound around a field because they didn't want to have fences making it look ugly. So they had these Jersey cows basically kept inside a grazing zone of ancient woodlands, right? Pretty impressive. And then we go back to the basic ancient stuff like the Om, and you can read more about it. So the Om is basically considered the root mantra of all mantras, and it's very important that people start understanding sound. Why? Because here we can see in August of 2023, the cheap radio hack of about $30 disrupted Poland's railway system. They sent a series of 3 acoustic tones at 150.100 megahertz, obviously triggering the emergency stop function just through a $30 built device. You can go online, and I'm not going to do it right now, but you can go online to this website and you can go and create your own. You don't even need an amplifier. Obviously, if you have an amplifier, it's going to allow a much stronger signal, but there's a lot of free resources available. So what is frequency? Well, I encourage you to go and check out some more details if you don't know what frequency is, but it's measured in hertz, right? Which is equal to 1 event per second, and ordinary frequency is going to be related to your angular frequency. So we won't bore you with some of the maths. It's all there. Frequency in physics, it's the number of waves that pass a fixed point in a unit time. You saw some of those biomedical devices. And then we move into light and frequency. Now I'm going to be bringing up a couple of other devices here that actually have been proven with little documentation, but this is a laser that I'm putting through a special cylinder sleeve that's generating a magnetic field. It's generating a field, and you can use different laser colors for different therapeutics. So we'll get into that in a minute, but light or visible light is effectively electromagnetic radiation that can be perceived by the human eye. If it's light, you've got a laser, right? But the electricity, you cannot perceive that. So this little device I've just shown you, this was a lady who had a lot of traumatic experiences. It's called the spectrochrome laser sleeve. And whilst it's great, again, she's a great gal, but it's $300. Okay, and I have a problem with that because you can go and build the 3D printed sleeve with 2 magnets and some copper wire, and you can actually do it in a better formation for better geometry and better effects. We've built it, we've re-engineered it to be a lot cheaper and a lot more effective. And you can pick up a laser like this from Amazon for like 20, 25 bucks, right? When you look at the light, people don't understand that that laser, you may have seen hacking Alexa with a laser, that's because it generates an electromagnetic field. That's a vibration. So mental and emotional trauma, this is where I've been focusing a lot on for some of the suicidal veterans. Set them up with a healing bath using light and laser and magnetics and frequencies, sound. So there's been a lot of research. This was, I think this was in 2019, showing you how the research on sensory stimulation that's going to help Alzheimer's disease. Again, there's so many validated solutions that if we better understand electricity and energy, we'll obviously be able to better engineer stuff. So your EMR, your electromagnetic radiation, this is pretty funny, right? So in a vacuum, your electromagnetic waves travel at the speed of light, commonly denoted, right? So we won't go into the maths behind this, definitely not on a Saturday. But when we start looking at where it meets quantum now, well, it's emitted by electricity. It's your charged particles. And so your quantum electrodynamics is a theory of how EMR interacts with matter on an atomic level. So again, we go back to the basics. Maxwell's equation, right? James Clerk Maxwell derived a waveform of an electric and magnetic equations, thus uncovering the wave-like nature of electric and magnetic fields. And of course, this goes back to where we start looking at a battery. A battery is direct current, DC. And so many people didn't understand electricity, where most people don't get this. You can walk outside barefoot and you can get free electricity. I was recently in California and I would do my Qigong every morning on the beach, and I was shocked to see how many people are walking on the beach almost like they're still half asleep with their shoes on. As kids, if you don't do this every day, you're losing out on free electricity. You are an electrical machine, so am I. We have electricity running through our bodies. When you go to the hospital and they check how well you are, they put you on an ECG machine. They need to see your electrical pulse. Yes. So growing up in England from the age of 13, I couldn't afford 60-pound games. So I had to learn how to, open up and unlock those games for free, kind of. Well, I paid for the demo game. It was like a magazine that would come up every 2 weeks. And so I spent most of my life learning how to hack stuff. We are all hackers in our own rights. There were kids in Ethiopia. They were given tablets, no teacher, no instructions. After 6 months of playing with those devices, they hacked Android. You can do anything you can think of. You can all do this. We don't have to necessarily always go to school. Going to school is more helpful. So making sure when you sit at home, you can go and buy from Amazon a very cheap grounding mat. And you can plug into the earth. So you don't have to be walking outside if you don't want to. My wife doesn't like to get her feet dirty. And so my kids take care of that. They're outside playing barefoot all day long. And as soon as she comes outside, she doesn't want to take her shoes off. My son's like, hey, Mom, you're not charging up. You need to take your shoes off. So if we teach the kids the right way in the beginning, they're going to correct the mistakes we've made, because us humans have made a lot of mistakes. That's how we learn. We've got to hit our head and then get back up and try it again. So you can also check, as I mentioned, your voltage. There was a doctor that I'll be mentioning in a few minutes, Dr. Jerry Tennant, who was doing LASIK surgery. He's a doctor in Texas, and he got 3 viruses when he was operating through his mask. All right, so for those of you who, if the mask makes you feel good, then let it make you feel good. But this doctor contracted 3 viruses while he was doing an operation on somebody's eye. And the viruses got into his brain. His other partners and the other surgeons said, look, you need to go home. We'll call you when we figure something out. Well, he only had 3 hours every day to be awake, where he could stay awake long enough to try and research. So he's going to help you understand how your entire body and every cell in your body has a different frequency and voltage. So the huge misconception about electricity, this guy is an amazing physicist. He is very popular on YouTube, and he came up with this little challenge. And so he basically put a challenge together and wanted to see how many people would get it right. So there he's giving you a demonstration of the fields oscillating perpendicular to each other, showing you the electromagnetic fields of a laser. So he set up this light bulb test. It was pretty funny. After he closed the switch, how long would it take for the light bulb to light up? Basically, he had 300,000 kilometers, probably about, I don't know what that is exactly in miles, but he had a 300,000 kilometer field, and basically half light second. So basically, he gave an option of which are those correct answers. And I've given you the answer right there. So, but the funny part there was there was a lot of people that did not agree with him because they did all of these experiments. So the only way you will really understand if it's valid or not is if you go and build it. If you read it from a book, you've only got half of the information because you truly don't understand it. It's almost like learning how to drive a motor car without ever getting into a motor car. I used to teach driving when I was 18. It was a side hustle, I had a girlfriend and it was great, right? I earned some great extra pocket money. But I can tell you right now, when the kid learns how to drive for the first time, luckily I was young. I don't have much hair nowadays, so maybe that could have been a cause for it, but it was frightening. But I had pedals, I had controls, so I could always brake and, even using a stick shift. For kids in Europe, they learn mostly on sticks. They don't have automatics as being very, very popular. So again, you're going to see a lot of information here. I'll be happy to share the slides with you folks. It is being recorded as well. So what we will be doing is we'll actually be putting this on YouTube. We need to get this information out there as much as we can because there's a deficiency in people's understandings of the very basics. And as Albert Einstein said, if you don't understand how to explain something that's very complex in a simple way, you don't understand the complexities well enough. Now, I'm not saying I do, but as we can see, some of the John Henry pointing rules, the pointing vector, where you're trying to work out the actual energy flow, the flux. And so, in quick summary, the light carries energy from its source out to its destination. But the kicker is this, that Poynting's equation doesn't just work for light. It works anytime there's an electromagnetic field coinciding. Anytime you have electric and magnetic fields together, there's obviously that flow of energy, and you can calculate it using the Poynting vector. So you can see an example here of the battery and then the light bulb. Again, showing you some of the experiments you can go and do with your kids. It's fun. I've been recently with my 8-year-old son, a 9-year-old now at least, been going through a lot of these fundamental magnetic and electronic kits that they used to use way back in the day. Except nowadays, some of my teenage kids, they're too busy glued to their box. And if you try and take their box away, oh boy, they're going to want to kill you. Maybe my kids are just like that, I don't know, right? But, because I've got kids that live in England from my first wife, and all I can say is you've got to love your kids to death, but you've got to try and keep them off that technology or at least monitor it. Don't just let them go out and, access information because there's a lot of good and bad in information. So there was that battery example of the energy flux away from the battery. You can see more details of that. So actually going through and pointing out there's always a cross product. When you start adding additional things to your electronic circuitry, you're going to have additional outcomes there. So showing you a little bit of the alternating current source and the energy fields. And then the power plant to homes. Why is this important? In the United States of America, if more than 10 power substations go offline, guess what happens? The whole power grid goes down for the whole of United States of America. I've been doing a lot of threat intel, specifically in some of the Ukraine historical attacks back in 2016 or somewhere around there, when they were targeting critical infrastructure. Right now, we're seeing huge attacks against our critical infrastructure here in the United States of America. So what does this have to do with all of us? Well, the technology needs electricity. Whether you're going to put it in the cloud or whether you're going to put it on premise, it doesn't matter. You need electricity. And so we need to come up with different ways of providing electricity where you can build a simple experiment from Amazon again. And this is showing how you can build a simple prototype. This is showing you where you need the light, but this is using light, solar, and magnets. Literally, you don't need any battery to power this on. So when you put it together and you put it in the sun, it's going to start spinning. You can generate electricity like that pretty easily. So these are things that are going to be released. It's not going to be suppressed anymore because we are at a critical mass right now. We're killing the planet, and if we don't change, we're going to kill ourselves. Pretty simple. End of life vulnerability. We either correct our mistakes or we're going to all experience that end of life vulnerability. So there's been a lot of papers that have been published, obviously trying to help uh, people better understand it. Some of the folks were like, nah, I don't believe what Veritasium was saying. So another guy came up and he bought 1,000 meters of wire to settle the physics debate. And the amount of information he learned from that was just amazing. So whether you believe it or not, go and do these same experiments and you'll come up with the same outcome. Sound, obviously huge, right? Because everything is really a vibration and it propagates as an acoustic wave. I'm not going to get deep into the quantum field stuff yet, but looking at some tuning forks. So when I got into learning about healing technologies, I realized that they've been able to use tuning forks. And if you use a different sets of tuning forks in different frequencies, this is a 528 hertz. So you can use your different frequencies as you can use like a solfeggio set. Normally I have two tuning forks and actually show how they resonate in harmony. So when you hit the one tuning fork that's tuned to, let's say, 440 hertz as an example, and you've got another one that's tuned to the same 440 hertz, they are going to resonate in harmony. The other tuning fork will start sounding even though you didn't hit the actual tuning fork. That's pretty much like we are as human beings. When you have your soul mate and you're truly in love with your soul mate, you are in harmonious, you are synchronous, you synchronize in harmonious frequencies. Basically, you've got two people that truly love each other. It's like, thank you, sir. Yeah. So when you're not meant to be with somebody because, you know, you might think they're good looking as an example, but they might not necessarily be divulging all the truthful stuff to you yet. You will know about that because you walk into a room and you'll know if somebody, it's not something that you need to just find somebody that's your own kind of frequency. That's going to be funny. We're going to see these new dating sites with, let's check your frequency. Do you have the same frequency? No, you're not suited. People are like, but I want to be suited. Let me get, oh, well, then you've got to be truly loving to that person. And learning love required me to learn how to be a killer first and then how to be a healer. So I can thank some of my experience that actually helped me with that. But you've got a various different, you know, range of frequencies that can mostly be heard by the human ear. And the ones that cannot are probably the most dangerous, right? We've seen how some of these attacks have taken place where they were using sonic, I believe, from some of the research from the Michigan State University. Kevin Wu did a lot of research on the actual effects of sonic, acoustic. And when you've got basically two foreign organizations trying to capture information, they were trying to eavesdrop on the US embassy. And the freak event happened because there were two spies trying to use the sonic weaponry against the embassy. And what that did is it created, instead of the waves becoming harmonious, so in sync with each other, they were out of sync. And that's where it actually caused some negative effects that even caused some brain damage. So some examples of your solfeggio frequencies, and you can see that, again, I'm not going to read through them. I'm just letting you know you need to be looking into this in more detail because the human brain uses frequencies as well. Yes. And so if we want our brain to work more effectively, we can listen to different types of music. For the longest time, I can remember wanting to play the guitar from about the age of 10. And then when I went for guitar lessons, I started off with classical guitars. I was hyperactive because my mother loved cakes. Okay? And so, of course, when I was hanging around as a kid, what did my mom always give me? She would be eating the cake. She'd go, oh, here we go, Wayne, my boy, has some cake. And of course, naturally, I was a little bit already hyperactive, but with a lot of sugar, sugar's like poison to your electronic systems, right? So I had to learn how to balance my hyperactivity. But going back to the guitar, if you actually go and look at tuning your instruments to a more harmonious frequency, most tuning of instruments are at 440 hertz. Scientifically proven that if you tune your instruments to 432 hertz, if we have any musicians in the house, go and try that. You will feel the same thing I felt when you start playing 432 hertz. It's more in harmonious sync with your biofield. What does 440 hertz make us? More susceptible to be programmed. Oh, so I didn't say that exactly. More susceptible to being happy, kind of. So the average body and your different organs have different frequencies. Again, you can see this is with some of the research done. So this guy had, his wife had Alzheimer's, and he had been researching some of this. So he found that just using that web-based tone generator and actually running that at 40 hertz increased the functionality of that person who was suffering from Alzheimer's. That is phenomenal. Go to the website, and you've got speakers in your computer and playing that frequency. That's just mind-blowing. So these are the things that I obviously didn't have to go through to validate, though, but I was able to verify other things like injuries I had that I had to actually heal from. I started doing more martial arts when COVID hit, and I injured myself and I had to have an operation. And so I hate needles and all of that, right? So in the recovery period, I was like not wanting to eat certain foods because it would obviously make it more difficult to pass your whatever's in the doo-doos, right? Picking up what I'm putting down. And so I switched over to just eating vegetables and that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, after about a week, while I was still healing from the operation, my fog started clearing. It was almost like my brain switched back on. I'm going like, whoa, I'm not so hyperactive anymore. Well, that's because I wasn't drinking 4 Red Bulls every hour and 2 liters of Coca-Cola every day. That everybody has treated your bodies differently to me. So what I'm sharing with you is what I had to do to try and fix my own body. What you have to do maybe to fix yours, if you think you need it, is different to what I've had to do. However, I went through that healing process by fixing myself through all of these various forms of technological and then going back to nature. As I mentioned, people don't walk outside barefoot. You should every day for at least 30 minutes with your feet on the grass. You can take a multimeter, everybody, and you can verify you're getting free electricity. Once again, all of these different products, though, these are without electricity, but you can use a computer PCB board that's got a 3D printed sacred geometry symbol, the torus field, and then the tesseract on the other side. Just this little business card that you can make yourself very cheaply is going to be harmonizing your EMF interference. We love our technology, but you've got to make sure you harmonizing their negative effects. So you can still use your iPods and your earpods and all of those other pods safely by using some of these harmonizing technologies. You may have heard of HemiSync before, helping you understand that you have a left brain and a right brain. And we've got to become more in sync with our own human field. So again, these are all validated. Go and have a look at some of the hemi-sync.com. It's going to help you with a lot of different problems that you might be experiencing. Remember, they're therapeutics. It's not going to heal you from any type of disease necessarily, but it's going to help give you therapy to assist you while you may be working with your physician. So there was a music teacher that came up with therapy for cancer treatment. He was able to show the resonant frequencies, and they've been able to map all of this, obviously making it more feasible now for a lot of hospitals. This brings me to one of my heroes, Eileen Makuzak. She is an amazing woman who used to fundamentally just focus on tuning forks and helping people unblock. Again, remember, folks, we're helping the veterans. We want to help them get over some of the traumatic experiences they went through. They can't get that out of their system with pills alone. They need some therapy, and they needed to have their blockages in their electrical field cleared. And so she's been able to successfully do this unbelievable success with tuning forks. So what we need to do is take that idea and add the artificial intelligence to that. Because with the AI, we're going to be able to learn things much more effectively and get feedback. We don't want to allow all these weird biomedical devices to be making it onto the market like they already have without a validation. And what's more, people are paying thousands and thousands of dollars without any of that validation. So again, don't believe me, go and check out the books, and most importantly, you can pick up a tuning fork for like $15, $20 on Amazon. And the sound, different frequencies will help various different types of issues you might be dealing with. So this is Dr. Jerry Tennant, who figured out doctors don't normally know about electricity in the body, but just a real recap. He was operating, doing LASIK surgery, as one of the first surgeons in Texas to do laser surgery. He was doing an operation on I'm not sure who the patient was, but it was a foreigner that wasn't from America, I believe. Anyway, he contracted 3 different viruses through the mask when he was doing the operation. And that made him pretty much like only able to stay awake for 3 hours every day. His doctor buddy said, hey, you need to go home. We can't help you with any of this. So he's got devices that he sells for like $8,000-9,000 that help you electrically charge your body. What I want to show you is how he came out with this information. Emotions, when you get angry easily or you get sad, you've got to learn that the emotions control your electricity. So there's some of the signs and symptoms of your post-traumatic stress, how it can actually help you out. We're trying to help some of the veterans reduce the number of suicides. And as you can see, some of the details of that presentation, but the slides will be made available. So that will actually break it down and show you exactly how every cell in your body works. We've got the wrong paradigm. We've got to readjust that. So it's actually showing you you've got a pH balance in your body, and you've got to make sure you balance that pH in your body. So watch some of the research that he puts out there. He's obviously made it his a mission to also help educate people and show you all of your different cells are regenerating. So if you look after your body, you're regenerating a new body. So here's some of the organs, and it tells you like your stomach, your turnover time is 2 to 9 days. You got a new stomach every 2 to 9 days if you've got a healthy body. So your body's continuously regenerating new cells. And like I said, the science, the biology is all there. I put a whole lot of slides together so that I'm going to share the slides so everybody can go and verify and research some of this information. And so the key point there is, where are we going from here? Well, AI. And the AI is going to help validate these statistics. So taking a sensor and adding it to some of these devices, like over here, I have a scalar wave device. You can see it's actually working right now. And this is generating different fields. So if you're interested in this tech, I'll be outside. Happy to show anybody. So I don't want to take the stage. I know we've timed up.